to Inner Peace Better Health, where we explore the bridges between well being, science, and soulful living. I'm your host, Saima, and today we are diving into one of the most critical challenges of our modern world burnout, and not just how to recover from it, but how to prevent it. Our guest, Jessica Tietjen, a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach, lawyer, award-winning talent management expert, best-selling author, podcast host, and mom of three. Jessica's work integrates neuroscience, workplace culture, and personal growth to help individuals and organizations unlock peak performance without sacrificing their health or sanity. Through a company evolving to exceptional, she's on a mission to transform workplaces and lives by helping people thrive emotionally, psychologically, and professionally. Today's conversation is about rewiring burnout at its roots, blending brain science, leadership, and real tools you can use starting today. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, you're warmly welcome. So let's start with burnout is everywhere, right? So what first drew you to studying burnout through the lens of neuroscience?
Yeah, so my story starts with my own burnout, and I spent over a decade in the corporate space as a corporate executive leader. And then I made it through the pandemic, which everybody's kind of got their pandemic story. And it was actually in 2021 when our organization got hit with a ransomware attack. And that was my tipping point that put me into full-blown burnout. And what was really a paradox for me was the fact that I had gotten to that point when we were doing everything that everyone said were all of the best practices, that we were winning awards for our programs, that we were doing all of the best practices that everyone said you should be doing. And so when I burned out myself, it started me on this journey to figure out, well, what was missing? What went wrong? Why, if we were doing everything right, did I end up in such a serious state of burnout? And so I've spent the last 3 years really studying the neuroscience of human performance and understanding the contributing factors of burnout, but then also what are the systemic challenges that we have that keep putting people back into burnout.
So was there a personal turning point, that made this more than just work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was um I think a significant change in my life. I had before going into the pandemic, I had um twin 6 months old girls, and I had a 4-year-old son. And the demands of like motherhood plus the demands of being a corporate leader, and I was over legal as an attorney, HR, IT, customer service, all the operations functions really tipped me over the balance. And the funny thing is, if you'd asked me the month before, I would have said everything was great. I would have said everything was perfect. I was doing everything the way that I wanted it to be. I thought everything was going wonderfully. And then that one really, really stressful experience was the thing that really just tipped the scale for me. And my first clue that something was really wrong was when I left my prior position. I spent the first few months just sleeping 12 hours a day. And I was so exhausted that it took me a really long time for my body to heal from all of the damage that had been done from enduring such excess stress for so long without any of the necessary strategies for how to manage that stress and how to manage those challenging situations in a way that it wouldn't get stuck in my body. So instead, it was like I was running through the world carrying these boulders of stress with me everywhere I went.
Jessica, that really shifts it from fixing burnout after the fact to creating environments where it can't even take hold.
Absolutely. Like the one of the things often say is that even though I knew what burnout was, even though I learned the definition, I kept finding myself back in burnout. And one of the things I've discovered as I've looked at and understood how the human body really operates is that our systems are built to perpetuate burnout. And so our work practices, the way that we manage people, the way that we lead people, the way that we operate and exist is perpetuating the same cycle. And so even if a person goes and gets the spiritual help that they need and the mental health or the therapy that they need to support them, when we go back into systems that are designed to put us back into that state, then we end up right back where we started again. And so it actually took me a few times of finding myself back burnt out again to go, okay, wait, there's something. Just knowing what it is isn't enough. We really have to look at how do we work and how do we interact with each other around work so that we can change how we live and how much stress we experience as a result of it.
That's noteworthy. Now, if someone's listening and realizing that they already ignited, where do they start?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is recognizing that there's a few contributing factors to burnout, and some of them we have control over and some of them we don't. And I always use the analogy of it's kind of like the three things you need to start a fire. If there's the oxygen, which is the environment that we're in. So what is the culture, what is the either the workplace or the cultural environment that we're in, and what are the practices within that are impacting us negatively. And the second is the fuel, or the things that we're going to burn, the sticks, the fuel that we're going to burn. And that is our own limiting beliefs, our own inner fears, our own inner challenges that push us beyond the point of breaking. And then there's the sparks, and those are the things that we can't control. And those are things like stressful experiences, traumas, living through the pandemic, things like that, that create the spark that pushes us over into burnout. And so if we're experiencing burnout, the first thing we have to really learn how to do and learn how to understand is how our body is responding to stress. And to recognize that when anytime we have a stressful event in our lives or stressful experience, that if we don't move that stress through our body, if we don't reprocess that experience and get the stress out of the body, it's going to get stored. And every time it does that, our stress baseline moves up higher and higher, which narrows our tolerance for stress. So actually, every stressful event that we have, it becomes easier to find ourselves back into that state. And so, in order to widen that window and in order to get better at how we navigate stress to get ourselves out of burnout, we have to start looking at what how do we move that stress through our bodies. So if you think about the way we were originally wired as human beings, we were supposed to outrun the predator or the stressful thing, right? We would literally run away from a tiger or a predator that was coming after us. And in today's world, we're sitting in front of a computer. We're not outrunning it and expending that stress. So we need to use somatic embodied practices to discharge that stress from our body so that we bring ourselves back into a balanced, regulated state. So every time we feel ourselves either shut down into a freeze state or get activated into a mobilized fight flight state, we need to take the time to regulate. And so whether that is through movement, like taking walks, exercise to discharge the stress that way, or you can use balanced breathing. So breathing for 2.5 minutes evenly in and out will bring your nervous system back into a balanced, regulated state and start to help you to discharge that stress so it doesn't get stored.
That's powerful. It's like not just about taking time off, it's about understanding the system that did the fire, right?
Exactly. And I think, what's really been interesting to me is that as I study the neuroscience of how the human body works, it lines up perfectly with what ancient wisdom traditions and spiritual practices have taught us for centuries. And so what spiritual teachers have guided us to do, like prayer, really is a practice of nervous system regulation. And so there are these practices that we've known about for a long time And then some have embraced them and some have not. And that by understanding them, we can then incorporate them into our regular practices, because we understand that it really is a science-based decision to engage in those practices. And then, that's at kind of the individual level, but on a broader level, then we can start to look at what are our workplace practices doing, and how do we rethink them or redesign them in a way that supports the humans, rather than pushing them perpetually into these cycles of really high stress.
Mm-hmm. Now, if the listeners, thinking that I want an exceptional life too, where do they begin and what would you tell them?
Yeah, so I think the starting point of any journey is becoming more deeply aware of our own responses and reactions. And so if we want to find better balance, if we want to live a more exceptional life, we have to start by really becoming aware of our own body's inner messages and what it's trying to tell us, because a lot of the times when we end up in those dysregulated and burned out states is because we're ignoring what our body's telling us to do. I ignored my body. I was very, very sick. I had multiple health issues. I developed autoimmune conditions. My body was screaming at me, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. And I wasn't listening to it. And so I think recognizing that our body has these neural connections within it, and not just in our head, but in our heart and in our gut, and that those intelligences have wisdom for us and messages for us that are really powerful and really important to listen to and pay attention to. And I think that when we do that, when we connect with those messages and we work with our body and we listen to what it's asking of us, we actually find not only do we live a better life, but we also have better outcomes in our lives, that we get the wisdom that we need when we need it, and we don't have to push so hard or overachieve to try to get those same results.
That's such an encouraging reminder. Jessica, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your tools, and your heart today. Your message is a beacon for anyone navigating stress, burnout, or just wanting to feel more alive in their work and life. And for all our listeners, if you're ready to evolve your life from just getting by to truly exceptional, go check out Jessica's books and her work at Evolving to Exceptional. Remember, burnout doesn't have to be your story. Let's write a new one together. Stay peaceful, stay bold, and I'll see you next time on Inner Peace.